Welcome to Real Life Mentoring, where we explore real life issues to help you make an authentic difference in the world.
Hi, it's Chris and Christina. Today we're going to pick up our discussion about the 6 areas focusing in on relationships. So Chris, remind us, what are the 6 areas?
When we talk about mentoring, we take the holistic approach, and so we see people in 6 areas. We are spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, relational, and professional. If you're working on your education, you could add the educational piece to it.
Right. We say that all those 6 components that comprise who you are as a person, they all affect one another. And so this is part 2 of us focusing in on relationships. To kind of recap, go back and listen to relationships part 1. We unpacked what healthy and unhealthy relationships look like. Today, we're going to kind of switch our focus a little bit. We're going to talk about the impact of social media on relationships. But first, you may be going, okay, I think I know. Well, let's help you understand what kind of relationships do you have in your life. Chris, you want to read those out for us?
Sure. So we begin with God. Yes, you can have a personal relationship with God. Your spouse, parents, siblings, children, friends, and colleagues. There is just look at your life. There are numerous places where you will find relationships.
And they're to different degrees. Some are surface acquaintance, some are deep. Yeah. Okay, so let's jump into the role of social media. I think this is something that if you're in our age bracket, you do not realize the impact, and maybe you do, of how the younger generation is experiencing relationships through the lens of social media. So I'm going to read an article. It came out in February of this year, 2023. It's in Medical News Today. The article says, how does social media affect relationships? Here's what they say. Social media can affect all types of relationships in both positive and negative ways. It can help people stay connected, but may also lead to less quality in-person time. People can use social media to stay connected to long-distance friends, family, or improve communication with partners, children, and healthcare professionals. In contrast, social media use can lead to less quality in-person time spent with loved ones and relationship dissatisfaction. These drawbacks may be related to pre-existing relationship issues or psychological conditions. Okay.
That sounds kind of heavy.
Yeah. I will talk about, there are benefits, as the article refers to. As I remember when we lived overseas, we spent 9 years abroad. I used Facebook as a way to keep pictures posted of our life so that friends and family could stay connected, and it was wonderful. At the same time, those times where I was really missing home, I sort of numbed out with social media, inserting myself back to our hometown, back to our friends' lives, just because I was so lonely in our new place. So it's kind of, social media really, it can be beneficial, it can be negative. Your thoughts on that?
Well, social media, I believe, also involves platforms like Zoom and Skype, WhatsApp. Is that fair to say?
No, we're talking about Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Okay, that makes sense, where you're not actually directly engaging people.
Right.
Okay, that's good clarification.
Right. The reason we're doing this is if you're in our age category, if you have younger people that you are mentoring, hopefully you are, you need to know the context from which they live. Very few young adults make personal phone calls. Their relationships are through social media, messages, and text.
And we've learned this through our daughters, our son-in-law, university students that we've worked with, younger people we've mentored, how they've communicated with us. For example, a few years ago, I'm mentoring a university student, as we have for many years, but I would usually send him a voice message.
Uh-huh.
And he sent me a message back, or when we were talking, I guess, after that, he goes, Chris, why do you always leave me a voice message? Why don't you just text me? Now, part of his reasoning was this. If he's in class or if he's at work, he said, I can check that, but I can't check a voice message sometime. Also, he was so used to just sending text messages. Mm-hmm. He thought it was a bit strange. And I said, well, here's the thing. I will text you occasionally, but sometimes I want you and need you to hear my voice as your mentor.
Right.
I need to hear the tone. I need you to hear the tone of my voice. I need you to hear the care and concern and the joy of connecting with you. But I need to hear your voice as well. So I had to actually help teach him. Send me voice messages. Actually call me on the phone. Let's communicate.
Right. Why are we spending time talking about this? Well, we are a real life mentoring podcast. And I think if you've spent any time mentoring someone younger than you need to be very aware of the role of social media in people's lives. I've had younger women that I've dealt with quit jobs through a text.
Quit jobs through a text,
Yeah.
really?
Breakups, go through breakups through a text.
Not acceptable.
Right. Well, it may be acceptable. Is it healthy? Probably not. You're not getting
It's not
real conversation going on. So I think that's a your generation attitude. I think it's acceptable, but is it healthy? That's what we're talking about.
okay. If we're good point. If we're talking about meaningful, healthy relationships,
Right.
And in relationships where you give each other respect, I don't think quitting a job through a text is healthy or respectful.
But it could be. So we're not here to debate it. Well, what we're saying is the role of social media. Mentors have to be aware of what their mentees are experiencing. Our youngest daughter lives with us, and where she gets her news from, social media. Where she finds out what's going on in the world, it's social media. Where I'm still old school enough that I turn on the news. Very seldom would I go to social media to find current events, but that's where she gets hers from.
Okay, I have to laugh at myself because I just thought about this. With my generation, if I send a text to you
Yeah.
or a voice message, I'll say a text right now, where I'm sharing something that's important to me, and if you send me an emoji with a thumbs up,
I do that.
I'm going to go, well, no, with something meaningful you dealt
sure,
with me.
sure,
But I
sure.
go, really? That's all you can do is put a fake thumbs up at something meaningful I shared? That's where I go, let's help teach. Let's help lead.
Yeah.
Let's also learn from the younger generation
Right.
how we can bring this together because relationships are struggling today.
Well, and some ways that relationships struggle is there's a lot of jealousy that is incited through social media. I think of just, with my girls growing up, but girls that I've mentored, two friends, there's a friend group, two friends go out and they post the best time they ever had in their entire lives all over social media. The other three friends are left out in the dark and there's jealousy or whatever. Just be aware. That's all we're saying is just be aware of the use of social media in someone that you're mentoring and all the things. I mean, real relationship issues can spark by one post. One post. Well, I thought that person was my favorite. You know what I'm saying? We tend to think, well, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're mentoring somebody who is very much, not very much in the younger generation, but I mean,
but living
tied
within the
to social media,
the social
is.
media aspect,
Right.
it is important.
Right.
I recently saw some family photos on Facebook. People,
Yeah.
okay, we've done that before. You take
Sure.
nice family photos. Everyone's smiling. Everyone looks cleaned up in nice clothes, and
Right.
and you could look at that and go, "Wow, what's wrong with my family?
They're perfect.
They're all perfect."
Yeah.
But if you think about it, when you take a family photo, what's happening behind the scenes?
Yeah. Shut up and get over here and get in line.
Really? I don't know that
I'm
I've
just
done-
being-
okay,
stop
you're being
it.
dramatic.
Yeah.
No, but okay, guys. Okay, adjust your hair.
Yeah.
Make sure your makeup looks good. If you're a lady.
Yeah, quit pinching me.
Yeah.
Stand up
okay,
straight.
Focus. Okay,
Yeah.
smile. Now it's not. It's not talking about being fake. But you want a nice family photo. But here's the thing: on social media, assumptions can be made.
Right.
Behind the family photo, I'm not taking it too deep, but there could be some pain. There probably is. So if we base our perspective on people only on social media,
Right.
we're missing a whole lot of them.
Again, we just can't reiterate enough. If we are talking to you, if you're listening and you fall in our age bracket, or let's say if you're 40 and older, the people that you're mentoring, social media is a huge part of their lives. A lot of times, social media will create unrealistic expectations within your mentee. they've got to look a certain way or buy a certain thing or whatever, you're going to need to address some of those issues because a lot of how they're being informed about the world comes through the lens of social media. You need to be aware of that.
All right. Considering our generation, and I would say we're very healthy people today. We're healthy in our marriage.
Yeah.
Have you ever done this, though? Have you ever gotten distracted by spending so much time on social media?
Just scroll. Yeah.
Where you and I are not connecting well.
Yeah.
I've never done that. No, I have done that.
Yeah.
Not purposely to go, I'm going to ignore my wife. I'm going to ignore my daughters. I'm going to ignore my son-in-law. But I've been in situations where it's a gathering of people for an event.
Yeah.
And you want to be together. I really believe people want to be together.
Uh-huh.
And you look, and I've seen everyone on their phones.
Yeah.
Younger and older generations.
Which, isn't that ironic? They're spending time on their phones connecting via social media. Oh, that looks fun. Hey, love ya. And the real life people in front of them, they're not connecting with. Again, you need to be aware. This has become, with somebody that I've mentored, this has become, every time we meet, a question. What's it like for you on social media? Because there's an addiction there. There's too much time spent on social media and they escape. They use it as escapism.
Don't misunderstand us. We appreciate and respect social media.
Sure, there's great things about social
There's
media.
so much that's good about it, but we can take anything to an extreme.
Right. There was an article that came out 2022, I think. It's called 12 Ways Social Media Affects Relationships. And one of the things, it talks about it can lead to poor self-image, it can unrealistic expectations, whatever. But it talked about the very real fact that when people are so engaged in social media, they're so connected in this make-believe world that they can lose track of really the present, what's going on around them. We've seen that time and time again. But if you're 40 or and older, if you're mentoring somebody, please ask them, keep them accountable. We're not playing big brother, big sister and checking in and how much time are you, but ask them, hey, tell me about your social media life. Do you feel like it's a hindrance or a help? In what ways is it helping you? In what ways do you sometimes feel yourself getting lost in the social media, tunnel?
Excuse me, I think this is fair to say. If your main relationships are only through social media, you're missing a great deal that's been offered to you.
Right.
God has desired for us to have meaningful relationships. If you've never shaken another person's hand, if you've never hugged them, if you've never looked them in the eyes and shared your heart with them, if you've never done some physical things with people, gone out and experienced times together like that, this is waiting for you. Mm-hmm. Social media is a wonderful thing. In fact, there's been guys that I've mentored and still do who live in other countries.
Right.
We're together a few times maybe, but then we keep the relationship going through aspects of social media.
Sure.
Yes, and it's another element, but it's through a Zoom call or texting as well.
Right.
But we've developed a relationship because of really connecting as men.
Right. So we're huge proponents of authentic relationships. Social media can be used for good, but just be aware of the pitfalls. Be aware of where your mentee is with social media. They may be in a great place, but just ask those probing questions. Maybe they've never been asked before. Social media is such a common thing for the younger generation that maybe they've never even considered their disconnection from some areas. And you as a mentor can bring some enlightenment in that area.
It'd be interesting if we had a 20-something here with us, year-old, or a teenager, and said, hey, would it make you uncomfortable? Okay, we know one another.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Would you be more comfortable if I called you on the phone and had a conversation with you that way, or just text you?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to find out, what would you prefer?
Yeah.
And if so, why? And so another thing I want to keep in mind, and those of you who are listening you want to be a mentor, you want to be an effective mentor, myself included, we're going to have to learn even more from the younger generation. How do I connect with you? What makes you more comfortable? What are you uncomfortable with? And how do we bridge that gap?
That's good.
Coming from both sides.
what we try to do with each of these series as we've discussed the 6 areas, we want to give you a practical tool, and we've been ending it with a role play. We're giving authentic answers, but what we want to show you is how you can use some simple questions to explore the relationship area. And I think what we'll do, since we mentioned what kind of relationships do you have? God, spouse, parents, children, friends, whatever. I think instead of just asking such an open-ended question to your mentee of how satisfied are you with your relationships, maybe you hone in on just one of those. How satisfied are you with your relationship with God? How satisfied are you with your relationship with your siblings? And so, Chris, I'm going to choose siblings for you because you're getting ready to spend some time. As we're recording this, you're going to leave and spend some time with siblings. So let's just role play this with how satisfied are you with your relationships with your siblings on a scale from 1 to 10. How would you rate your relationship with siblings?
I'm going to say a 10 being the highest.
Yeah.
I'm going to say an 8 or 9.
Wow. Okay. And why would you rate it that high?
It hasn't always been that high because we've lived so far apart from one another for so many years, and because we're older now, we've been away from living in the same home. Mm-hmm. So that plays into that dynamic of how connected I may feel. But the last several years since living back in the U.S., not just myself, but our siblings have made more of an effort to connect. And our mother passed away about 2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And if that's been an experience you've had, hopefully it has drawn you guys closer together.
And not apart, yeah.
Not apart.
Yeah.
So I would say about a 9.
Wow, that's really a blessing. So for you to get to a 10, what would that look like in your relationship with your siblings?
Thinking about that, I think it requires for me to look at myself internally even more. And meaning, okay, lower expectations, don't make assumptions, put judgment off the table, things like that.
Okay.
I'm not asking my siblings, you guys have to meet me at a certain place. Yes, you do in relationships, but to get to a 10, I think it's going to require more of me
That's interesting.
looking at Chris.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And go, you know what? That's not worth arguing about, or that's not worth having a disagreement about, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I could go on there.
Yeah, I like that. So what would be a natural next step? What's something you could do today or tomorrow toward taking that to a 10 in the area of relationships?
I'm actually going to do that tomorrow as from the recording of this podcast episode. I'm traveling to Missouri to meet up with 2 of my sisters. It's about 5 hours away, and I thought, well, do I go? Do I not go? And then the question I've been asking myself in the last probably couple of years, why would I not do this?
Right.
What'd you say?
I was just repeating what you were going to say.
Yeah. Why would I not do this?
Yeah.
Is there any negative? Not at all. I get to spend time with my siblings and my brother-in-law, and so why would I not do that?
Yeah. I love
So the next step is I'm going to take off work tomorrow and I'm going to drive to Missouri.
I love that.
And the next step is be engaged. While I'm there, I'm not going to be on my phone. All right?
Yeah.
I'll get a phone call or 2. I'll deal with it. I am there to connect with my family while I am there for 2 days.
I love that. That's a natural next step. And we just modeled for you what exploring a specific relationship with your mentee can look like. Okay, anything else as we wrap this part 2 on relationships of the 6 areas up today, Chris?
I don't want the younger generation to think we're being negative
Or that
towards
we're
social
picking
media.
on them. No,
Not at all. My generation has issues too that we have to deal with.
And we're not saying social media is an issue. It can be.
It can be if we take anything to an extreme. This is interesting, Christina. My generation with men,
Yeah.
a high percentage, I don't know what it is, but a high percentage don't know how to communicate with maybe their spouses, their
I think
children.
this is a whole other podcast.
It is. I'm just saying, though, we can say, well,
Right.
social media has taken the younger generation further away from communicating authentically.
Right.
We didn't have social media when I was growing up, and
Yeah.
we'd sit in the same room and not even connect. So may I not be hypocritical here?
Right.
No, let's get real. God cares about meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
Guys, there's so much waiting for you. It takes some courage if you've never had it before, but it's so worth it.
Well, our intent today was to focus in again on relationships and to highlight the role that social media plays in the younger generation. If you are a mentor, be aware of the role social media is playing in the life of your mentee. ask them pointed questions. Get a glimpse into what living with social media looks like for them. So again, thank you. We know you've got lots of choices. We're so glad you listen today. Would you be a subscriber? Just subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a rating, review, thumbs up, all that stuff. And then recommend us to family and friends. If you would like to support toward the production of this podcast, we would really, really appreciate that. Just go to FahrenheitMentoring.org. On there, you will find a podcast tab. Just click on that and it'll direct you how to give to our podcast. So as always, thank you so much for listening.